So 6 members of the British cabinet, including Duff Cooper, Lord of the Admiralty, and Leslie Hoare-Belisha, who was Minister for War, called for the British to mobilise. "Hitler is dictating terms, just as if he had won a war," said Henderson. The French and Czech governments rejected Hitler's demands. The French asked the British to mobilise, to introduce conscription, and to pool economic and financial resources, which largely just meant to give loads of resources to the French for free. General Gamelin, the head of the French army, visited London and proposed a joint offensive to help the Czechs. Churchill asks Chamberlain to go to speak to the Russians. He said, "Go to speak to Stalin," as the USSR and the Czechoslovakia had a mutual defence deal. A newspaper poll was published showing that the public are broadly pro-war. 40% were in favour of fighting against Germany, 22% were in favour of backing down, the rest were undecided. On the 27th of September, the British mobilise the Royal Navy and distribute gas masks to the population. Poland, however, makes it clear that it will not fight to help the Czechs. Indeed, there is grounds to suspect they may have been on the other side. Chamberlain then sends Wilson to speak to Hitler, who raves at him, threatening war. Chamberlain asks the Czech army to abandon the Sudetenland and is advised by Henderson, the British ambassador to Germany, that the Czech army is badly equipped with low morale. But that's strange, because Henderson has not seen the Czech army. He's in Germany and has not been to Czechoslovakia. And it simply isn't true. It's what he'd been told by German military officers, who were not necessarily the people to be asking at this time. He certainly doesn't ask the British ambassador to Czechoslovakia. And Daladier, the French leader, on his way to Munich to meet Hitler, is advised by the head of the French Air Force, a man called Valmion, that the French effectively have no air force, and that what airplanes they do have will be destroyed within weeks if they dare to fight the Germans. He had in fact visited Germany to inspect the German Air Force, but they had fooled him completely about the strength of the German Air Force, as they had shown him airfield after airfield after airfield full of modern aircraft. But what they'd done was they'd have had him to tour these airfields. Then when he finished inspecting an airfield, these aircraft took off and went to another airfield, changed their number plates, and then he would arrive and inspect what he thought were new aircraft. He inspected the same aircraft many times over. And so as far as he was concerned, the skies were going to be filled with German planes, when in reality they just simply didn't have those kind of numbers. And so on the 29th to the 30th of September, the British and French meet with Hitler, and Chamberlain gives in to Hitler in return for the piece of paper, as it's called, where Hitler signs saying that he agrees to ask for no more territory in Europe. Hitler had wanted war, and he felt that Chamberlain had outwitted him. Goebbels described Chamberlain as an ice-cold English fox that had managed to con the Germans into avoiding the war that they wanted. But Duff Cooper, the Lord of the Admiralty, says that they should be ashamed of abandoning the Czechs this way, and resigned. War had been avoided. But could the British have won a war in 1938? Well, firstly, as we've said, the USSR has an agreement to defend Czechoslovakia, and it had mobilised its military units near Kiev and Minsk during the crisis. The Romanian government would have been key here. Would they let Russian troops go through Romania to help the Czechs? You'd think possibly not. But the Russian government had actually discussed this, and they had said during the crisis that they would allow the USSR free passage through Romania to Czechoslovakia to honour their Little Entente commitments. The Romanians had made promises to the Czechs, and they said that to honour these promises they would allow the Red Army through their country to go and reinforce the Czechs. And the USSR's foreign minister, Litvinov, had said that the USSR would defend the Czechs and had asked for a defence discussion with the British and French. So the war, when it came, would have been Britain, France, Czechoslovakia and the USSR, possibly with Romania, fighting against Germany and possibly Poland. Secondly, the German defences in the west were not complete. The German chief of their army, Jodl, had said that he had 5 regular and 7 reserve divisions in the west during the crisis, 12 divisions in total, to fight 100 French divisions. In total, the Germans have 75 divisions in 1938, but not all of them could have been used against the Czechs. They'd have had to guard the Polish border, they'd have had to have troops in the west. At most, the Germans could have sent 24 divisions against the Czechs. The Czech army had 35 well-equipped divisions, and there would have been no element of surprise. The Czechs knew the Germans were coming, and they knew where they would come from. A German officer in 1939 had told a British journalist, "The Czech defences were impressive and impregnable to our army. We could have tried to go round some of them, perhaps, but we certainly couldn't have reduced them." Hitler's plan for this, known as Operation Green, was for a pincer attack by the 2nd and 10th Armies, a German army coming up from Austria, trying to link up with a German army coming south from Germany. It was incredibly risky, especially considering the Czechs would have had numerical superiority, and indeed the Czech equipment, remember, was excellent. The German fleet was also ill prepared. They had only 3 pocket battleships, 7 destroyers, and only 3 ocean-going submarines at this time period to face the might of the Royal Navy. And Ludwig Beck, the Chief of Staff of Germany until August 1938, and his successor, Halder, and the head of Germany's military intelligence, Oster, and the head of the German Interior Ministry, and the retired German General von Lieben, all were involved in a conspiracy to overthrow Hitler if war broke out in 1938. After Munich, however, Hitler's popularity soared, and their chances soon faded. And also the German people themselves did not support war in 1938 in the way that they did in 1939. This is the words of the British ambassador to Germany, again, Henderson. "War would rid Germany of Hitler. As it is, by keeping the peace, we have saved Hitler and his regime," which he considered to be a good thing, as Hitler was, he believed, a bulwark against Stalin and the USSR. And finally, Germany needed Czech resources. In September 1938, at the height of the crisis, they had just enough petrol for 3 months. Now let us think of possible ramifications of war in 1938 between Germany and the Czechs. Hungary and Poland could have joined either side. As it is, after Munich, Poland seized Teschen off the Czechs. Italy may have entered the war on Germany's side, but if so, its fleet would have been horribly exposed against the combined British and French fleets. Goering had threatened to bomb London flat, but lacked any realistic resources to do so. The Japanese were still busy, bogged down, fighting against China, and in 1938 also fighting against the Russians. But the British don't fight. Their chance of winning a quick war against Hitler is squandered. But have they bought time to rearm, which is often said about Munich, that our failure to fight allowed us to rearm? And we'll be examining that in the next video.